What's up everybody? Hi YouTube. Welcome to my first video. Today we're going to be talking about Nasus Thresh and the 40 cards I choose to run inside the deck and what your other options are. This will be a series of video guides on how to play the deck in different matchups, but we're just going to start with this rundown. To start off, we're going to talk about the staples in the deck, and that's Ravenous Butcher, Bakai Reaper, Cursed Keeper, Fading Icon, Glimpse Beyond, Vile Feast, Black Spear, and Spirit Leech, and of course your two champions and Atro. These cards are pretty much core. You can't really change them at all. The numbers are one thing that can change, and we'll just start at the top. I am personally of the belief that you should only have 3 or sometimes 4. You can push to 4 zero-cost cards in your deck. I choose to only run 2 Ravenous Butchers because I find that having nothing to sacrifice for your butchers is really, really bad. And like I've had hands brick out where I've had 3 butchers, and I just can't do anything about that. One card that was recently released that helps with that problem is the Wings in the Wave, which we'll talk about when we get to it. But I just wanted to draw this attention to this as a combo. The next card I have in my list is a Rite of Calling. I've seen anywhere from 0 to 3 of these in lists. I personally like running 1 right now as my 3rd butcher that bricks slightly less often because you can use it to draw a champion for mana in a real pinch if you have to. You should almost never do that, or do it late game if you have to. But it bricks a little less than Ravenous Butcher. Usually you want to be using this to kill an ally and draw a champion early in the game. Typically you want to do it when your opponent's tapped out of options and doesn't really have a way to remove the ally that you're killing. Good allies to kill: the Wings in the Wave, the Soldier off the Dunekeeper, the Prey off the Fading Icon, Vile Feast Spider, Blighted Caretaker, stuff like that. Right now, with the way the meta is, you have a lot of Aurelia, and having an extra copy of Thresh in hand is really, really good. So that's why I like running Rite of Calling at this point in time over the 3rd Butcher. You can definitely go up to 2, you can definitely go up to 3 if you really want. Like I said, double drawing champions is really good in this deck, especially in the current meta. The next card that I have been a day one believer in is the Bakai Reaper. For a while, people were back and forth on this card. They weren't too sure if they actually liked it or not. Some people were saying the deck's not an aggro deck. Why are you playing an aggro card? I'm here saying the deck is an aggro deck. Play it like an aggro deck. Be fearsome. Go face. This card is going to let you win the Aurelia matchups. It's super, super huge if you can get them to blow a Homecoming onto this. This card is going to let you just be aggressive in the early game. It's going to let you play Bakai Reaper on 1, Dunekeeper, Ravenous Butcher, Wings in the Wave on 2, stuff like that. And you just push nasty amounts of damage really, really fast. It's great. I would not recommend dipping below 3, especially not right now in this meta. Maybe the meta shifts after the next patch and it's opened up a little bit, and then this is less necessary because you do want to take on that more controlling aspect where you OTK someone with a Nasus into an Atro. But right now, 3 Reapers, super stable, would not change. 2 Dunekeeper. This might be a little weird to some of you. I'm not a huge fan of this card. I don't think Dunekeeper is a great card in the list. Pushing 4 damage on turn 1 is fine, but it's better to play a Reaper and then push 4 damage on turn 3, or 5 damage on turn 3 when your Reaper is a 3-4, a 3-2, or a 4-5, or 4-2, or 5-2. I just think this is the weakest of your 1-drops, and as such, I've chosen to only run 2 so I can free up space in other parts of the list. You can definitely be running 3. I've seen lists with none. That I don't think is correct. 2 or 3 Dunekeepers where I would be. The Wings in the Wave. This is another card that might be kind of what, but I think this card is fantastic. It does everything the deck wants, and then some. I have played this card to kill 4 3s just to push Nasus to 10, so when he attacks, he gets Spell Shield, and I can win the game off of it. I have played this card for 2 0-1s that I then double butchered in a single turn with a Reaper on the board. It's just so flexible. It's really good when you double draw it because the one can be played onto the second can be played onto the first. It really opens up your 3-drop curve because you can go Bakai Reaper on 1, double Dunekeeper, Butcher on 2, and then Keeper, Wings in the Wave on 3, or you can bank some mana in there somewhere. It just really, really opens up your 3-drop curve, and it smooths the deck out in a way that I really like, and I would recommend running 3, just because of the flexibility and the way it interacts with the rest of the pieces. Curse Keeper, 3 of, staple card. It's your ultimate sacrifice target for anything you want to be using to kill your own units, the Winks in the Wave, the Butchers, the Rite of Calling. This is what you want to be hitting with it primarily, if you can. There are situations where you don't want to be popping this, like against TLC, it's not the worst thing in the world to set up other units that are like bigger and then just slowly chip away and force them to avalanche your bigger boards, and then pop your keepers for you. Or you can get glimpses off at that point, maybe. There's a lot of things you can do with this card that are kind of tricky. And it's really good in almost every matchups because when you pop it, you get this 4-3, and 4-3s are great. Fading Icon, I'm only running 2 of, because, again, I wanted to make room for other things in the list, and I think this is one of the weaker cards. It's 2 mana, 3-1, and it summons an 0-1. It's okay. It just doesn't do anything spectacular. It's not great in the mirror because it just gets Vile Feasted. And it doesn't give you a good blocker for the Aurelia matchup either. So I feel like right now, with the addition of the Wings and the Wave as additional fodder units, this has become less necessary and is less good of a card in the list. The next card we'll touch on is Glimpse Beyond. This card is one of your 2 draw engines. You only have the 2. And it's a great way to get Slay stacks. When they go into Mystic Shot, your Bakai Reapers, because it's a 4/2 Bakai Reaper and it's about to hit them in the face, you just Glimpse. And then you're denying an Ezreal level up, an Ezreal trigger, as well as drawing 2 cards. You can Glimpse, if they go to kill your Thresh, you can Glimpse over the Thermal Beam. You're just always trading up in cards, basically, with Glimpse, and you should never run anything less than 3 of. Staple card, don't have to talk about it too much. Vile Feast, also super critical in the deck. It lets some of your cards trade up. 3 attack units can trade into 4. It's really key in the mirror because it lets you kill stuff like the Fading Icon, the Dune Keepers, even the Butcher sometimes. If they've taken a trade, you can take the Vile Feast and use the Vile Feast and take out a Butcher. It gives you fodder. 1/1 Spider is not a unit you care about too much, so you can use things like the Wings and the Wave, your Butchers, your Rite of Callings on it. Would never recommend dipping below 3 of Vile Feast. I've seen it. I think that's trolling. Would not do. The Black Spear is something that's really good and is your primary removal tool in this deck. I've seen people running less Black Spears now, 1 or 0. I don't know how I feel about that one. I've been thinking about it lately. The Black Spear's not hitting a whole lot in the meta. It's one of your better ways of killing Thresh, especially now that we're not running Sand Spinners. But it doesn't really do much in the Aurelia matchup unless you're already forcing them to recall and you have a death trigger so you can go over the recall with it. And it doesn't really do much outside of the Dragons matchup in general. A little bit in the mirror, like I said, it helps you kill Thresh. But Dragons, it's really important to help you kill your Shyvana. Sometimes it's just good to have. I could see going down to 1. But I would always keep 1 in the deck. I think it's just a very strong card in the archetype that does what you want to do. Blighted Caretaker. I am currently on 1 Blighted Caretaker. Ironically, Blighted Caretaker is good into the matchups like Overwhelm, where you want to pull their big blockers out of the way so you can get in with your Merciless Hunters and your Bakai Reapers. This deck is a Nasus deck at the end of the day, but it kind of cosplays as a fearsome deck just because of these 6 cards. The 3 Merciless Hunters and the 3 Bakai Reapers. I have won games purely off of fearsome, and I'm sure you will too if you play the deck enough. As for the Caretaker, it kind of clunks up boards sometimes, so I don't feel like it's a very powerful... It is a powerful 3-drop in some situations, which is why I've included 1, but a lot of the time it just makes your hands awkward, and double drawing it and triple drawing it can be not so great. This might be a hot take, but maybe not. I think 1 is perfect, and it's where you want to be. It just doesn't push quite as much damage as it used to, and having a 1/1 versus a 2/2 is actually a big deal, apparently. Merciless Hunter, one of the best cards in the game, never mind in the list, but certainly one of the better cards in the list. 3 mana, 4/3 fearsome, play grant an enemy vulnerable is just ridiculous. You can grant vulnerable to their vulnerable units, or to their fearsome blockers. You can grant vulnerable to things that you need to remove, to something that can let you trade down. This card is just fantastic in the archetype. Letting you get free slays or taking better trades to push more damage is just fantastic. It's everything this deck wants. Would never recommend running anything less than 3 unless we see a nerf in the future, which I don't expect because I think they've gone on record saying they want this to be one of Shurima's power cards. Rite of Negation. I'm currently running a single Rite of Negation. You can probably get away with running 0 on ladder right now. Just bluff it, and even if you don't bluff it, if you just have, like, people will have it in their minds when they're making their own plays. So I don't think you need more than 1 right now, not on ladder. If you wanted to bring 2 in a tournament, that's probably okay, depending on the meta you're expecting. But it's just good to keep your Nasus alive against concerted strikes when you're kind of in a pinch and forced to play it. It stops ruinations, it stops the box in the mirror, it stops Atro Change in the mirror. It's just a card that if you're seeing a lot of the mirror, I would definitely recommend running. But otherwise, you can just go in. Spirit Leech. So there's been some experimentation with Spirit Leech lately where people actually dropped it completely from the list. I think those lists have kind of gone away at this point and they're back to at least 2. I'm not a big fan of cutting draw in this list. I can see why they want to cut the Spirit Leech. It's one of the more clunky cards. You can definitely go ahead and do it. I think that's a fine choice. But personally, I like 3. I like having the card draw available to me. I've been brought out of bricked hands because of Spirit Leech, so maybe that's results-based analysis, but I'm really, really big on the card. I think it's very important to have as much card draw as possible in a list like this, so I'm running 3 in my own. Nasus Thresh, we don't really have to talk about these at this point, right? Level your Thresh, play your Nasus when it's safe, attack with your 10 attack Nasus, easy, win the game. And Atro, just the staple card. Use Atro on your Nasus when they go to kill it, make sure they don't have frostbites. The things we can talk about, though, are other card choices. Like, the one thing I've seen people playing lately is the box. You can just main deck the box. So I think that's a fine choice. I think the box is a good card in the list. But I would sooner run 2 Rite of Callings. I would rather play a second Rite of Calling because it's going to draw you a box about half the time, maybe a little less. But I think it's good to have Rite of Callings and just have more access to your champions, and this does what your deck wants a little bit more. This pushes your own advantage a little bit more than the box. The box kind of ruins your opponent's game plan a little bit more than Rite of Calling. I like working towards my own game plan on ladder, so I would sooner go up to a second Rite of Calling. But if you did want to run the box, you can do that. Withering Whale is another one people like to run in the list. I do not agree with this card choice. I think this just is too expensive for what you want to do. It can, like, the healing is okay right now, especially with Aurelia Azir running around on the ladder. 3 health can make a difference. But I think it's just too slow. 5 mana to deal 1 to the board is just not enough. Yeah, I've been blown out by it. Yeah, it sucks when you lose to it, but I wouldn't recommend running this card in your list. Other choices. We're kind of out of card choices, right? Preservarium. You can run 1 or 2 of these if you want. I don't know what I would cut to fit it, but this is a decent card draw option. Oh, and Sand Spinners. We can definitely talk about Sand Spinners. This card is so good. So good. But there's no room in the list for it. If I could run a 45 card list, I would be playing Bakai Sand Spinners. If you wanted, one thing I've been thinking about experimenting with a little bit here is cutting down the fading icons altogether, going back up on the Dune Keepers, and then adding Sand Spinners, and just thinking about that, and maybe drop a Leech. And yeah, maybe our hands get a little bit more clunky, but maybe they don't. I don't know. It's something I want to test a little bit, because I do want to find a way to fit this card again. Vulnerable and playing as like a pseudo-fearsome deck is just really, really strong, and it's, again, one of the best ways to play this deck a lot of the time. This card has seen some experimentation. I don't think it's good enough. I tested it myself a fair bit. And then Unspeakable Horror I've seen run. I wouldn't recommend that. It doesn't really do what the deck wants. Yeah, sometimes you can kill a unit, sometimes you can push a damage, but generating a Nightfall card isn't good enough. Doom Beast's not needed with the deck archetype. Quicksands, I've seen run a little bit. I don't think this is good enough. I don't know what this is actually doing for you in this deck. Because the way this deck wants to play is you want to take a really strong out-of-the-gate stance with Reapers, Dunekeepers, aggressive cards early game, push them down to a reasonable amount of health, and then Atro them in the face with your Nasus. So things like Xenotype Researchers, or Prankster, or Quicksand, or Withering Whale that we've talked about is just not fantastic. They don't work towards your game plan. If you want it to be really spicy, I guess you could main deck a Siphoning Strike, but I wouldn't recommend that. Just draw more champions. It's better. I've never been against the one Vengeance. If you wanted to play a single Vengeance in your list, I think that's fine, especially if you're seeing a lot of the mirror. This can be really powerful. But yeah, there's no real other cards that this deck would want. Maybe this finds its way in eventually, but I think right now this is just too slow, and I would rather play another Nasus. So yeah, that concludes our little rundown of the deck. I hope you guys got something out of that. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. I have to talk about Ruination. Okay. So I've been informed I have to talk about Ruination. Don't play Ruination in the deck. This doesn't do anything for your deck. You're not a control deck. It's just not good. Absorb Soul. You can play Absorb Soul. It's a great card. Would recommend. 10 out of 10. No, don't play Absorb Soul. This is also not really doing a whole lot for you. Maybe there's a way to make this work, but wouldn't recommend. I would much rather have another Butcher and be pushing face damage instead of healing my own face. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Send me a tweet. Come hang out on my stream and let me know what you have to say. You can find me at twitter.com/Monty. The links will be in the bio. Go find the links. Go click that like button, and then go click on those links and subscribe to my socials, join my Discord, all that jazz. Thanks for watching.